Alright everyone, so today we're going to do another United States Senate prediction. I haven't made one of these in about a month or so, but I'm back from college finals hiatus, so I'll be uploading to the channel more. So if you'd like to see more predictions like this and other presidential predictions, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. So we're going to be moving west to east here, starting of course with the safe states. Oregon is going to go safe Democrat on the Senate level. Idaho, Wyoming, well, South Dakota will too. Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee. Actually, no, we'll change Kentucky. I just want to fill these safe states out of the way so we could talk about the real battlegrounds this time around. That's going to be it for the safe Republican states. Yeah, that's going to be it for the safe Republican states. So we're going to start off with the state of Montana. The last time the seat was up was in 2014. If we go back to 2014, Steve Daines, who's running for re-election, won this seat by a safe margin, 17 points. This again was during a Republican wave year, but this is also coinciding with a presidential election, and I know that Steve Bullock is a fairly popular governor, and a Democratic governor at that, in Montana, but I think at the end of the day, gubernatorial races are a lot different than Senate races, especially in a red state like Montana. Montana's safe red, presidentially speaking. So I think at the end of the day, that's going to be enough. Trump's coattails might just be enough to bring Steve Daines over the top, and I think it will. Now, we can look, of course, at how Montana voted in the 2016 election. Trump won the state by 20 points, and also Gary Johnson got almost 6 points, and I'm sure the other independents got a few other points as well. So this is a state that Trump could easily win this large in a state like Montana. And the fact that it's going to be a presidential election, I think it's going to carry Steve Daines over the top. Now, I know that Steve Bullock in some polls is leading, but for now, I'm going to put the Montana seat as lean red. I think the Senate race is going to be a lot closer than the presidential, but I think Trump's coattails will be enough to trump the popularity of a Democratic governor like Steve Bullock in the Senate. Colorado is another seat with a Republican incumbent. Back in 2014, if we go down here, Cory Gardner won an upset victory, a surprise upset, against incumbent Mark Udall in 2014, and the areas he did really well in were, of course, these Denver suburbs. He almost won both of these counties here, and won Jefferson County on this map. I think in the actual results, he didn't win Jefferson. I don't remember because 99% reporting. These are not 100% accurate. But essentially, Gardner did really well in these suburbs, and he did well in rural Colorado as well. Keep in mind, 2014 was a big red year. This was a year that Republicans were sweeping the House. They picked up the Senate. They won the Senate. They gained 8 seats. So this was a huge red year. But if we look at the 2016 election in Colorado, Trump didn't do very well. He only got 43% of the vote. Now, that is obviously because of third parties. If the third party candidates weren't there, he'd probably do a bit higher, but he wouldn't win the state. I think Hillary Clinton would have still won the state by around 5 points like she did here. But this is the kind of landscape that we're going to see in 2020, a much higher turnout election with both Democrats and Republicans turning out. Now, I don't know if the Trump enthusiasm gap will hold. I think it will. It held in 2016 as well against Hillary Clinton. There was a huge enthusiasm gap there, and ultimately it played to the detriment of Hillary Clinton. But it's more than likely, it's very likely, I'd say there's a 75% chance or so that Joe Biden wins the state of Colorado. I think it's slightly out of the reach of Donald Trump. Not as much out of the reach as a state like Virginia, because Colorado can be a bit more unpredictable, but as of now, Colorado is a very blue state, at least on the state level, and federally it hasn't voted for a Republican for president since 2004, just like Virginia. So I think overall, especially since you have John Hickenlooper, former governor, I don't know exactly how popular he was, but he was reelected. Since he's running against Cory Gardner, and the fact that Joe Biden's probably going to pick up he's going to keep the state of Colorado, I'm going to put the state of Colorado as leans Democrat for right now. I think that it's more likely than not that the Democrat takes this seat, but it's going to be, I guess, a little unpredictable. We'll really only know come election day. But the polls right now have Hickenlooper up by a sizable amount. There's not really any polls with Gardner up, and if they were, it was probably back from 2019 when there was no Democratic opponent. But anyway, we'll move down south to New Mexico. So New Mexico's a state I don't think is going to be very competitive. We could just go back to 2014. Another Udall, Tom Udall, I don't think there's a relation there, but Tom Udall won this seat by 10 points in a Republican wave year. This is also the same year that Susana Martinez, who was the incumbent Republican governor, won by, I think, a similar margin, around 10 or so more points. But anyway, New Mexico, I think, is not really going to be in play on the Senate level. We can go back to the 2016 election. And Trump only got 40% here. Now, I know that's also due to third parties, but this isn't exactly really a swing state. New Mexico at this point is a likely to safe blue state, and I think on the Senate level it will be as well. So we're going to put it, just for now, we're going to put it as likely blue, anywhere from 7 to 15 points of a margin of victory for whatever. I think Udall's running again. He might not. But either way, the Democrat is going to win by a likely margin there. Arizona is a really interesting one because the last time this seat was up was in 20... No, this is a special. Okay, this is the special election. No, the last election that Arizona was up for was in 2018. This is when Kyrsten Sinema won the seat. Not as much of a surprise as you think. The polls had Kyrsten Sinema up a lot. I remember when the result came in, I wasn't shocked. I would actually be more surprised if McSally pulled off. But if you watch the debates, I don't think McSally is a good candidate in any way. I think she's a poor choice. And the fact that Doug Ducey picked her, I guess he was gambling on her to become more popular. But if you look at her polling, she's not a very popular incumbent. The people of Arizona rejected her once, and they might reject her again. I think it's more than likely. Mark Kelly is up in the aggregate around 9 points here in Arizona. But so this was the result, of course, in the midterms. Kyrsten Sinema wins by like 2.4 points or so. A narrow win, but here's where she wins big. She wins big in Maricopa County. This is a county you have to win, essentially, to win statewide races. And she won it by 5 points. 4.2, I mean. She did well in Maricopa. She did well in Pima County. These are the two counties you need to do really well, particularly Maricopa. Republicans usually lose Pima County by around 5 or so points, and they still can win. They still win Maricopa by a couple points as well. They'll win the overall state by around 5 or 6 points. Doug Ducey did very well in the midterms here. And the Attorney General. But we can go and look back to 2016 to see how Arizona usually votes in a presidential environment. This was a really interesting election because Donald Trump only won this state by around 4 points or so, a little less. It's probably like 3.5 points. This was probably the closest margin for a Republican since the 1990s, probably since 1996 or 1992. I know 96 was the last time Arizona went blue presidentially speaking. But if we look at the way it voted, Donald Trump has 48% of the vote. Now, this is during a high turnout election, but keep in mind, now is probably the first time we've seen Joe Biden leading in the state of Arizona. So it's very possible we could still see a split ticket where we have Trump narrowly carry the state of Arizona, which I think at this point is still a higher possibility than Joe Biden taking it, although I don't discount Joe Biden taking it at all. Arizona has changed a lot in the past few years, but you can't base how a state is going to vote in a general election based on the midterms. We can't just look at 2018 and say because the Democrats won the Senate, now Arizona is a blue state. That would be very irresponsible. That's not really how it works. However, it does show an overall trend that it is possible for Democrats to win. And I know it was sort of a blue year in 2018, and that's what probably put Kyrsten Sinema over the top of that. And Martha McSally was basically running as the Trumpian candidate, which doesn't really play well in a state like Arizona. There's 2 states where that doesn't work for Republicans. That is in a blue state, and that's Arizona and Virginia. Those are 2 states where running as a sort of Trump acolyte is not going to fare very well for you. So I think overall, based on these trends, I think Mark Kelly is going to win the state of Arizona, probably by around 2 points, so we're going to give it to him in the lean column. And it's going to be weird seeing 2 Democratic senators from Arizona for the first time in, I imagine, decades and decades. That, and it's only been 2 years. Over in the next 2 years, it's very possible we're going to see two Democrats come out of Arizona. I think Martha McSally is a weak candidate, and I think ultimately, even if Trump carries the state, it's not going to be enough to carry her over the top as well. Kansas is a little more interesting, but it's not as in play as these other two states. We could look at the last time there was a Senate race in Kansas. It was against Pat Roberts. Pat Roberts is retiring this year. The likely Republican nominee is Chris Kobach. Now, Chris Kobach, if we go to the 2018 election results, Chris Kobach lost the governor's race back in 2018 by around 5 points, 5 points exactly. So he's not essentially very popular in a state like Kansas. However, it is important to note that Chris Kobach's Republican predecessor, former Governor Sam Brownback, did kind of destroy the state's economy. He was a very bad governor. And overall, I don't think that helped Chris Kobach. That, and on the account that this was a blue year. But if we look at the other statewide results, Republicans win overwhelmingly, basically by 20 points. So people that say Kansas is in any sort of play for president or anything like that are just lying to you. It's wrong. Kansas is not at all in play, at least not for a long time. So we're going to put the state of Kansas right now as I'm going to put it as likely red. I think the fact that Kansas, and again we'll look at the presidential results, I think the fact that Kansas goes so overwhelmingly for the Republicans, 21 points here, in presidential races, I think that's going to be more than enough to carry Chris Kobach over the top. Again, this is a totally different climate here in 2020 than it was in 2018. Trump's approval was different. The world was different. It's a very different world now. But I don't know that, and I think the challenger running against Chris Kobach is going to be a former Republican turned Democrat after 2018 or something. I don't really think the seat's in play, and I think I'm comfortable with putting this as likely red. Texas is a state that is semi-competitive. This is a race that, we shouldn't be talking about. But ever since the 2016 election and the 2018 midterms, it's a state that's become increasingly more in play. But not to the degree that I think people are hyping it up to be. If we look back at the last time John Cornyn's seat was up back in 2014, he won the state with 61.6% of the vote. His opponent barely got over a third of the vote here in the state. And this is a very, very, very unlikely outcome in 2020. A lot has changed. Texas has changed a lot, but also this was a Republican wave year. Look, I mean, John Cornyn almost won Dallas County. He was 3 points away from winning Dallas. He won Fort Worth by 20-something points, 24 points. He did really well in urban and suburban areas. Now, if we look back at 2016... with Texas, now this is a similar environment that we're probably going to see this time around. Texas was 9 points. It was a 9-point margin for Donald Trump. Now, Gary Johnson did get 3.2%. I think most of those votes would have went for Trump, but it's not really fair to say that all of those voters would have turned out had Gary Johnson not been an option. They might have just stayed home. But I think that overall in the state of Texas, we're going to see the Senate race be a little bit wider of a margin than the presidential race. So I think Trump, at this point, his polling in Texas is not as good as it was before what's happening now occurred. Before, Trump was leading in Texas pretty comfortably. Most reliable polls had him up around 7, 8 points. Some polls had him up by 11. But, I think now we're looking at a situation where Trump is going to win Texas by less of a margin than he did last time. I could be very wrong. Biden could stay at around 43% like Hillary. Trump could get like 54%. But I think as of the race we're looking at right now, I think the race is going to be closer because we're going to see places like Harris County go more blue, Dallas go more blue, and Tarrant County definitely be within maybe 5 or 6 points, which is worrisome for any Republican incumbent. And these counties, Denton and Collin, if these two counties flip, the state of Texas is blue. That's it. Tarrant County narrowly flipped back in 2018, and we could look at that race. Tarrant County, which is where Fort Worth is, probably the last conservative sort of leaning urban county in the country. Tarrant County flipped for the first time, I think, in nearly 2 decades. Beto O'Rourke got 0.7% of the vote higher. He got a few thousand votes over Ted Cruz and actually won Tarrant County. Now, these two counties Denton and Collin came within like 6 points of each other. This was a very, very, very close race. And if these counties had flipped, the state as a whole would have surely flipped as well. And again, these Austin suburbs counties, Williamson, Hayes County, I think Hayes County is probably going to stay blue in 2020. Even Greg Abbott could win Hayes County, and if we go to the full results, Greg Abbott did really well. Now, this, I think, is probably what's possible for a popular Republican incumbent. That's what Greg Abbott got. He was a popular Republican incumbent, but he still only won by 13 points. I guess you could say compared to the rest of the races, that's very impressive for him. But overall, if this was the actual result in an off year, this would be kind of an abysmal result for a Republican. Not absolutely horrible, I shouldn't say abysmal, but it would be a disappointing result. This surely was a disappointing result for him, but he was almost able to win places like Harris County. Somewhere, I don't think Trump's good. He'll do better, I think, than he did last time. But Texas as a whole is a state that's becoming more urban, more Democrat. And, the prospects of a blue Texas in, by the end of the decade or the beginning of the next decade are not at all really out of the realm of possibility. The way the trend is going, Texas just gets more blue and blue and blue. And, that has a lot to do with the demographic change going on in this state, especially in these urban and suburban areas. So we're going to put the state of Texas as likely red for now. I think John Cornyn is going to win his seat by around 10 points, 9 or 10 points or so. Trump might win all the state maybe by 8. He might do a little worse, maybe 7. But I think John Cornyn is going to be definitely in a more comfortable position. But he's still going to have to fight to get a decent margin out of this state. Minnesota, we're not going to talk much about. Tina Smith is fairly popular. I think she's going to win that by a lean margin. I don't really think Minnesota is going to, even if Minnesota goes to Trump, I think that she'll still win her race. We can go back to 2014 when she was not first. She was elected in the 2018 special, my bad. So if we go back to 2018 and we go to the Senate, Tina Smith did not do as well as Amy Klobuchar did. She won her seat by 11 points, but she still did fairly well. And I think in a presidential environment, she'll probably win it by a couple points. Trump almost won the state of Minnesota, but he only got 44.9%. And now we have to wonder, if there were only 2 candidates on the vote, how much would Trump have gotten? He probably wouldn't have won the state. I don't think he would have. But I definitely think he would have done better. He probably would have got 46, maybe even 47. But I think for now, the state of Minnesota is going to stay in the blue column. Likewise, Iowa, Joni Ernst is not that popular, but she's also not that unpopular either. I think this state is going to go to her by around 5 points. It's going to be closer than the presidential, but it's not really going to be a nail-biter. Illinois is safe blue. I forgot to mark the safe blue states, so I guess we'll start with Illinois is going to be safe blue. Virginia is going to be safe blue. Not much to talk about there. Mark Warner is very popular. It was a close race last time, and we can look at that. Last time in 2014, the race came within a point. This was surprising. It's because Ed Gillespie did really well in these suburban counties. He actually won Loudoun County. He broke 40% in Fairfax. He broke 45% in Prince William. If we look at the national, how Virginia votes nationally, though, if we go back to 2016, these margins aren't really possible in a presidential election. Trump got 28% of the vote in Fairfax. In Loudoun County, he only got 38%, and in Prince William, 36%. So I think this kind of showing and these trends in the suburbs are going to continue. So there's not really much to talk about here. Also, Mark Warner is a fairly popular incumbent. We're going to move over to Michigan. Michigan is one of those states that I think if Trump is going to lose any state and Biden's going to pick up one from Hillary, I think it's going to be the state of Michigan. Michigan is still a decently leans blue state. The 2018 midterms, of course, the Democrats won pretty handedly. Of course, we go to the Senate. Now, John James did very well for a Republican in a blue year against Debbie Stabenow, who was fairly popular, actually, too. John James did very well. Do I think he's going to win? At this point, the polls don't show it. It's very possible. If Trump wins the state of Michigan, it's very, very possible. And I wasn't saying this a few months ago, but I'm saying it now. It's very possible that John James could actually pick up this seat, since Gary Peters is less known and less popular. And also, we're talking about a national election where rural turnout is going to be much higher, especially with Trump on the ballot, barring, of course, the current situation getting any worse. But if we look at these counties, John James underperformed in these rural areas. These areas here, he underperformed massively in rural areas, but he did very well in the suburbs. And he did better in suburban and urban counties, but he failed to win over rural counties. He actually did pretty poorly in these rural counties. Had he gotten the same margins as Trump, he would have easily picked up the state. If we go to 2016, of course, in Michigan, this is what we can expect from a national election. All of these counties going safe red up here, a lot of deep red counties up here on the peninsula. But I think just for now, I think that Michigan is still going to be a lean Democrat state. I think Gary Peters might win by around 3 points, but this could change the next month. If polling comes out, if the data comes out differently, I would change this prediction. But right now, I'm going to put it as leans Democrat. Kentucky, not much to talk about. It's probably going to be likely red. Amy McGrath is just a standard Democrat. If we look at how Kentucky votes presidentially speaking, it is overwhelmingly red. Mitch McConnell is not popular by any means, but Trump will go down to Kentucky and stump for him. He's going to campaign for him, and I think it's going to pay off. He'll probably win by around 9 points. If we go to the last time this seat was up, Mitch McConnell, Allison Lunder Grimes was hyped up as, being able to unseat Mitch McConnell, and it turned out to be well, as you can see, Mitch McConnell won by over 16 points, so that seemed to be the hype wasn't there. People thought that she would be able to take out Mitch McConnell. Wasn't going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen this time. There's not much to talk about here. Alabama is a state that's very interesting. If we go back to 2017, this is the most interesting thing of all, I think, is that the only reason Doug Jones won was because Roy Moore was an alleged pedophile. If this wasn't the case, this wouldn't even be a contest. And look at the vote total that Doug Jones won by. If we go to the presidential vote total in Alabama, Hillary Clinton outperformed Doug Jones by tens of thousands of votes. I don't even think Alabama is going to be close. I didn't want to put it as safe in the beginning so I'd be able to talk about it. I think this race is going to go safe for either Tuberville or Jeff Sessions. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. Doug Jones voted for impeachment. He's more popular than he is unpopular, but I think at the end of the day, if Trump does a lot of rallies in the state of Alabama, which I don't know how many rallies can realistically be done in the current situation, but I sure hope, just for the sake of the interest of campaigns, that the candidates are able to do rallies. But for now, I'm going to put Alabama as a safe red state. I think, now call me crazy, but I think this race won't even be close. We can go back to other races with Democratic incumbents back in 2014 where the race wasn't even close, and we could do that. So Mark Pryor in Arkansas. Now, Arkansas is a state that goes very, very red presidentially speaking, but this was a race with a vulnerable Democratic opponent, incumbent I mean, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And I don't think the Alabama race is going to be close. People think Doug Jones realistically has a chance. If I was him, I wouldn't even be campaigning. I don't think there's a chance of it. So I don't think Doug Jones is going to do very well. I think he's going to lose by a safe margin. Call me crazy now, but I think it's going to happen. Georgia, we're not going to discuss Georgia much. I think both of these races are likely. I was going to put the special as lean, but it doesn't look like Kelly Loeffler is going to be the nominee after all. It looks like it's going to be Doug Collins and some other Democrat, and Doug Collins does not have the stock fraud baggage that Kelly Loeffler, the incumbent. Also, Kelly Loeffler is not that popular of a senator. I think if the Republicans pick Doug Collins, they're in very good shape to hold both of these states by a likely margin. And keep in mind, polling in Georgia, like we're going to see with North Carolina, benefits Democrats. It has Democrats up, and then Republicans usually swing in and outperform their polls. We go back to the last time David Perdue was up. He won the state by 8 points. Now, Georgia's a bit wacky because even though this was a red wave year, the Democrat did still do fairly decent. They got 41%. That's similar to the margin Hillary got. But I think at the end of the day, this is not really going to be as close of a race as people are hyping it up to be. North Carolina is going to be very interesting. We can go to 2016. Well, we'll go to 2014 first, the last time this seat was up. Tom Tillis won the seat by less than 2 points. He unseated Kay Hagan, Democratic incumbent, during a wave year. Only by 2 points, by the way. Kay Hagan did very well in rural areas. Of course, Tillis trounced her in the rural areas, which was just enough to outdo Kay Hagan in this case. But it was still a very close race, and I think Thom Tillis's decent margins in places like Mecklenburg, in Raleigh, and Fayetteville, Cumberland County, are the reason why he was able to win the state. But this was a super, super, super close race. And I think the Tillis and Cunningham race is also going to be very close. But we look at the last time North Carolina voted in a presidential election. It voted for Donald Trump by a sizable amount, nearly 4 points. But this was also the same year. Now, Richard Burr also did really well in his race, winning by 6. He was an incumbent. But also, and a lot of, again, Deborah Ross was another opponent that people thought would actually maybe have a shot at taking the seat. Turned out to not really be accurate. But it's also the same year that Roy Cooper won. So we have to keep in mind it is possible for the people of North Carolina to vote split ticket. And it does happen. But I still think the fact that Cal Cunningham in the aggregate is only leading by less than a point, I'm still going to give this race to Thom Tillis by, I think, a lean margin is fair to say. I think Thom Tillis will probably win this state by around 3 or 4 points come Election Day. I forgot to fill in the rest of these states, but these are going to be all blue. Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Massachusetts has a primary coming up in September. It's going to be very interesting. A Democratic primary, of course. Republicans don't have a chance in Massachusetts, but Ed Markey, who's the incumbent, is being challenged by Joe Kennedy. So if you live in Massachusetts and you're a Democrat, be sure to vote in that primary. New Jersey and Delaware are other blue states. New Hampshire is probably going to be a lean blue. Not much to talk about there. Maine is going to be very interesting to look at. So in 2014, Susan Collins won Maine by an absolutely unprecedented amount of the vote. She got 68% of the vote, 68.5% of the vote. Her opponent got less than a third of the vote. But a lot has changed since 2014. 2016, Maine almost went to Trump, but now that Maine has ranked choice voting, I think that is going to be to the detriment of both Trump and Susan Collins. If you don't know what ranked choice voting is, I might make a video briefly explaining what it is. But essentially, it is going to benefit the Democrats in this situation. It's not going to benefit the Republicans. If anything, it's another hurdle for them to overcome in a state that otherwise might be in play for them. I think that ranked choice voting puts the state of Maine out of play, at least for 2020, so I don't think this is a state that is a possible pickup for Trump. It would be very, very, very difficult for him to do it, but it's not impossible either. But Trump, again, got very close in a state like Maine, a state that was a blue state, a state that voted for Obama by over 17 points in 2012 and 2008. So it'll be very interesting to see. Again, the popular vote in Maine for the 2 House races, the Republicans got 48%. It's very, very, very possible that this race does come down to the wire, and neither candidate might get over 50. They might have to go to the second ballot. And in that case, I would give the benefit very, very, very narrowly to Sarah Gideon. So I'm going to put that as a tilt blue margin. But anyway, this is how I see the Senate races going as of now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. There'll be more prediction videos coming out later in the week, but I thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one.